This is the Lesson 5 video on credit cards. When you're applying for a credit card, you need to consider a number of things. Number one, under cost, you need to consider what the annual percentage rate is, how long the grace period is, whether there are annual fees, transaction fees, and how they compute the balance for the finance charge. How do they calculate that balance? All of those things may make a difference when you're comparing different credit cards. Some of the features that some credit cards have, they have a higher credit limit, acceptance of the card, and service and features are available. And then there are also some that give you cash back depending on how much you purchase. So you want to be careful when applying for credit cards to get the very best credit card for your needs. When calculating finance charges, you use a number of different methods. One of those, probably the most common, is the average daily balance, where you pay interest on the average balance owed during the billing cycle. The creditor figures the balance in your account on each day of the billing cycle, then adds together these amounts and divides by the number of days in the billing cycle. Sounds complicated, but it's not really that complicated. Your balance may stay the same for 10 days, and then if you charge something, it's going to go up, or if you make a payment, it's going to go down, and so that will affect the amount of interest that you pay in an average daily balance. The adjusted balance, you pay interest on the opening balance after subtracting the payment or returns made during the month. Previous balance, you pay interest on the opening balance regardless of any payments made during the month. And past due balance, no finance charge is added if the full payment is received within the grace period. If it's not received, a finance charge for the unpaid amount is added to your next bill. So you definitely want to look at how it calculates the finance charge before determining what kind of credit card you would get. Here are some examples of those finance charges. On an average daily balance, 1.5%. Monthly is an APR of an annual rate of 18%. Adjusted and previous are all the same. And then notice the balance and the payments. But notice the finance charge, the differences in finance charge. Adjusted balance was less than the average daily balance of $3.75, and previous balance was a lot higher. So be sure that you do, as I said, check those before you determine which credit card you're going with. When you're comparing credit cards, you do want to compare the type of account, the annual fee, if there is one. Many credit cards do not have one any longer, but you still need to check and make sure. Grace period, how long, in other words, do you have to pay after the due date? Annual percentage rate, what's your credit limit going to be, and what's the minimum monthly payment? A finance charge calculation method, we just looked at that. So which one are they using? You want to go with one that's using the least. And a late payment fee and other fees if you are late, and then any other features that you may have. And these days, when you're comparing, you also need to compare what they do about fraud and how they contact you if it looks like there's a fraud on the account. Some accounts are better than others about that, and because we have so much identity theft, it's important to watch that. If you're denied credit and it's a valid denial, then you need to ask the creditor if they can provide you additional information, or you need to arrange some alternate credit terms with them, or ask for that at least. Apply to another creditor whose standards may be different. Do the things you need to do to improve your credit worthiness, such as pay bills on time, increase income, reduce spending, obtain a secured card, and then reapply. Of course, if you didn't need that credit card, it's not for emergency purposes, or you really don't need it, you just want something, then that denial may be a blessing for you. So really consider whether you actually need the credit card. Not sure of validity of the denial, you can ask the creditor to explain why you were denied and review your credit history. If you find your credit history contains errors, you need to take steps to get those corrected. That can be done. And if you believe the reason for the denial is invalid and you were discriminated against, then you need to notify the federal enforcement agency whose name you were given by the creditor. Remember that there are laws that occurred in the 70s that protect us from this. The federal enforcement agency will investigate and report back to you. If you can afford it, you should hire an attorney to file suit against the creditor. If the court determines the creditor did discriminate, the creditor will be required to pay you actual damages, plus they'll actually also have to pay punitive damages. Doesn't happen very often, but okay, so dealing with billing errors. This goes to the Fair Credit Billing Act of 1974. It sets up a procedure for the quick correction of mistakes that appear on consumer credit accounts. Obviously, in the 70s, they found a need for this, and so they set up this law. You can challenge a billing statement for errors such as charges for unauthorized purchases, charges for items that were never delivered, and failure to credit a payment. Most of the time, if you don't get any satisfaction by doing this verbally on a phone, then you need to do this in writing. You must notify the creditor of a disputed item within 60 days. The creditor must investigate and within 2 billing periods either correct the mistake or explain why the charge is not in error. You cannot be billed for or forced to pay the disputed amount until the creditor has finished their investigation. If it is determined that you are responsible for the bill, you must be given the usual amount of time to pay for it. Your credit history is protected during the dispute process, and the creditor must supply customers with a statement of their rights at the time the account is open and at least twice a year after that. All of these items are part of the 1974 Fair Credit Billing Act. Credit card protections. Prompt credit for payment. A card issuer must credit your account on the day the issuer receives your payment unless the payment is not made according to the creditor's requirements. Refunds of credit balances. When you return merchandise or pay more than you owe, you have the option of keeping the credit balance, or they have to give you a refund. Unauthorized charges. If you report your card lost before it's used, you cannot be held responsible for any unauthorized charges. If your card is used before you report it lost, you're liable for $0 if reported within 2 business days. After that, you're liable for no more than $50. That should be 50, not 50,000. In some circumstances, you have the right to withhold payment for unsatisfactory merchandise or services, but you should never do this without having done it in writing and following through all the guides for that. Some do's and don'ts. You should shop around and look at various sources. You should read and understand the contract. Read it carefully. Don't rush into signing anything. Once that contract is signed, get a copy of it to keep. Know the penalties for missed payments. Know your cost. Calculate the total cost when paying with credit. Make the largest payments possible. Know the penalties for missed payments. Buy on installment credit only after you've evaluated other payments possibilities. Don't be misled into thinking small payments will be easy. All important things for credit do's and don'ts. End of lesson 5 video.